So I'm just like, here's the thing. So I'm so tired of this virtue that's up and down like a toilet seat. But then I recognize, well, it's just a system of predators, right? And if you're born a shark and told that you can't be a shark, right? So if the prey come around and create a justice system of a democracy and they say, hey, sharks, you can't prey on dolphins anymore. The sharks are potentially, if they, are exiled or thrown in jail, they may start acting to fit in. But they're still going to always be a shark. Always. And they're just going to get more clever at being a shark. And it's like, yeah, I can say, oh, I'm so fucking tired as a dolphin to deal with people's virtue that goes up and down like a toilet seat. But isn't that reality? Isn't that what happens? Like, I'm just trying to understand. Am I going gray? I don't know. Looks like snot, but I know it's not. It's just like, is that gray hair on my beard finally? I'm 40 years old. But anyways, it's like I shouldn't be tired of something. I think people need to like the more and more and more and more I think about solutions, it's really about no single power. And I've been saying that since 2021 when I first declared my government lawsuits with my pink hair. I explicitly described a government that doesn't have any single power as a solution to this constant back and forth because as somebody who worked in construction and like state planning, it's frustrating because you can work on a project for like your entire career and then a flopped government comes in and they cancel it and you lose like all 10 years of your life working on something like, and they come in and they say, oh, we're just going to put a Band-Aid on that. Now we're only going to put $20,000 on that to buy some more time to the next government. And sometimes things like that happen for like 50 years where governments come in after a 4-year lead and they'll say, oh, that Ministry of Transportation budget just doesn't suit us anymore. So we're going to cancel everything. And that bridge replacement goes under the bridge. And it like literally, they put in the minimum to keep it going. And that's what's happened to the Gardner. That's what happens to Parliament Hill. So Parliament Hill is falling into the river because they put off putting in piles to reinforce the cliff. The cliff is like ocean clay. And Ottawa used to be under the fucking ocean. Okay, it's marine clay, like salt marine clay when it connected to the Hudson Bay. The ocean connected to the Hudson Bay to the Ottawa Valley. And that used to have under ocean, right? So that's difficult when you build a huge building with books in it and people and Parliament. So Parliament Hill in Canada, the whole structure from the Supreme Court to that cliff, Lover's Lane, that had been crumbling since the 70s or 80s, and they had to close Lover's Lane because of crumbling statue. But it had already been asked to reinforce the cliff. Now they're at a point, I was working on that project, so now we're at a point where the government couldn't pay off to extend time anymore because it's going to fall into the Ottawa River. So they had to close the Parliament, which is why it's closed, basically. And they're going to create a multiple tier garden, right, to preserve the picturesque scene and use vegetation and piles, which are big, somewhat, they're like screws that go into a wall, right, like drywall screws. So those are going to get thrown in there, and then they're going to plant roots and create a tiered system to stabilize the wall. That's what they think is going to work. Doesn't mean it's going to work. It doesn't mean that it's like it could make the situation worse. You're drilling holes in a cliff. Okay, it's not. You've got already a very heavy building there with lots of stuff. It could fall into the Ottawa River by drilling into it. It is plausible. So there is a lot of risk in trying to preserve Parliament Hill. But these are the kind of issues that we have, right? When you have people that are structurally fit for themselves alone, you can't let them have single power because this is the kind of negligence that happens. And when we have a system that goes back and forth, we're nurturing division. If we said to people going forward, everyone's going to have a voice, everyone's going to have an equal voice, and everyone's going to be represented by somebody that truly represents them. So when I say that, I mean there's actually an autistic person in Parliament that can speak for me as an autistic person. It's not so much of a riding base, but as a demographic based cabinet. And so I've been asking for these changes. Why they would want to delete me from history or erase me or censor me is in itself proof that the wrong people have power, and people who have a self-serving interest, who have maintained single power for too long. And I believe that, whether we choose democracy, NDP, conservative, Democrat, whatever the fuck choice you have, it's all serving the same shark. The sharks have the power. They have been killing off dolphins left, right, and center for such a long time. And I'm using this as an archetype, not because I think I'm an actual dolphin and not because I actually think people are sharks. I'm using it as an archetype because people need to understand predator and prey, and that human behavior have those demographics built in too. Like, you're not just a psychopath. You could be a empathetic psychopath and hurt yourself. Like, there are not just one blanket that you can apply. And same with autistic. Someone who's autistic and hyper empathetic like myself, I'm never going to be psychotic. I can't be psychotic. I've tried to be psychotic to get back at some of the people that hurt me or raped me. I can't. I don't know how. Like, I feel bad for them. I think, what monster made them? And I think, and I want to fix it for everybody. That's me. Sadistic, psychotic people get hurt, and they want to hurt that person worse than they were hurt. I don't know how to do that. If anything, I might feed them their own medicine, but I don't do it to hurt them. I do it to show them how it feels so I can train them not to do it again, because I have an empathetic view, because I want the next person to never have that pain. So it's like, how do we understand that I want to see empathetic people in Parliament? I want that represented. I want my autism represented. I want my two-spirit represented. I think balance is not built through how many people you have in a riding, but by electing people that serve your interests. And so, 25% of the population is going to be sadistic and psychopathic. I don't think they should be excluded. I think that's a very psychopathic thing to say. And so, to be fair, they should have representatives in their parliament as too. But the underlying problem is that they're all psychopaths right now in parliament. Well, not all of them, but too many of them, right? And other people are being silenced and extorted. It's not a pretty look. And then we have infiltration, blah, 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 blah. So the reality is, I have been thinking of the solution, and they want to diminish that. They want to censor me. I've been offering solutions, providing examples on how other people can access justice, and they want to censor that. They want to censor me training other people how to get through justice. They want to censor my knowledge. That is predatory behavior. Isolating people and nurturing division and censoring help that prevents harm, that's evil. That's not forgivable, right? So we need to recognize that. These are parts of my solutions as well, as classifying people for what they really are by what they do.